Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. Where did summer go? We had 85 degrees last week, and presently we have snow on the ground. Oh my gosh. This is just getting me confused. That's all this is doing. And which it also meant I had to go cut a couple more loads of firewood. I cut 2.5 trailer loads of firewood this week. And those are big trailer loads. I mean, they're bigger than a pickup bed, let's put it that way. About 1.5 pickup beds is what I'd call it per load. Anyway, yeah, so going crazy. Got 43 viewers already. Good. Yeah, the situation in the Ukraine, I got emails about that. You know, I made comments on it last week. And one of the emails said I needed to seek legal counsel right away. The other one said your life is probably in danger. You should, be careful, very careful. And I just simply say I, am not trying to thumb my nose at any of that, because certainly it's a serious situation, a serious topic. But on the other hand, I stand by everything I said. I will not change my opinion on any of that. The man needs to go away, and he needs to go away in the worst way. I am not a fearmonger. I am not a prepper. I'm not one of these people that feel like everything is a conspiracy. I believe in kind of living my life, and you guys live yours, and we'll all be happy. That's kind of the way I think about it. And Putin has kind of changed everything, and he is a psychopathic narcissist, and he knows no other thing than to go forward and to fulfill his own will. It's his own crazy idea. He wants to put the Soviet Union back together. He wants to be the supreme ruler. And if anybody watching this thinks that he's going to stop with Ukraine, you are the most sadly naive person on the planet. He will not stop with Ukraine. He will go to the next country. He's going to put the whole Soviet Union back together, and if he's successful doing that, you can bet he's going to think he's Mr. Hitler Supreme, and will start going into other countries because he wants to be the ruler of the whole world. The reason that his plan has stalled is because he has isolated himself, locked himself in some kind of a bunker somewhere, and he is not in touch with reality. That's, I've been watching lots and lots and lots and lots of news reports on this. Yeah, it's a bad deal. If he's still in control a year from now, then we are presently already entering World War III. I'm fairly certain some of his people are going to take him out, and I'll be so glad when that happens. And some of you are probably saying that I shouldn't talk like that, and I shouldn't be wishing for him to die, but I do, and I'm not ashamed to say it, because somebody needs to stand up and say it. I want him dead. That's better than hundreds and hundreds of thousands of other people dying. And he has no remorse. He has no empathy. He does not care one little tiny bit about the woman who was leading her 3 children across the street, and an explosion killed her. I don't know if it was a bomb or what it was. Yeah, it killed her and her 3 kids. Yeah, he doesn't have any care about any of that. All right, enough said on that. I'm no expert on the whole situation. I just know what I know, and I know he is a narcissistic psychopath and will not change no matter what. He will not negotiate. He will just go straight forward as long as he can. The only reason his whole thing is stalled is because his leaders are afraid to tell him that it's not doing well. And in fact, some of the reports said that the leaders would much rather, have a coup against him and take him out rather than tell him the bad news. That's what the insiders are saying in the country. So that wouldn't surprise me that they don't go take him out. But I hope that happens, and I hope it happens today. Okay. I meant to say this last week about that subject too, that the ghost of Kiev, the guy who was the fighter pilot who took out the 6 Russian planes all within 30 hours. Yep, I like you. Good job, good job. Okay, yeah, and if Putin happens to be watching this, yeah, I want you dead. Okay, Ron's status. My buddy Ron, who makes the deer antler saddles for me, he is still not doing all that well. He is still on oxygen. He did try to get on a weight machine for the very first time yesterday. And so he's trying, but he's struggling. I got a game camera photo here to lighten the mood. You'll like this. See the one on the upper left there? You can see the little raccoon climbing up the pole to my feeder. And then he climbed over, got on the feeder, and his buddy is down on the ground eating the feed that he's dropping. It's corn, basically, is what's in the feeder, and it throws it out at night. And for the most part, that's what we're throwing it out for, is for the coons. My son is trying to train his young coonhound pups to trail coons, and so I get notified on my phone whenever these coons are back there, and I call them coons just because that's what us country folks call them. Raccoons is obviously the proper name, but we just call them coons because it's shorter. But anyway, so whenever a raccoon is back there, my phone tells me that, and then I text my son, and then he takes off with his pups back there, and they trail them up, That's what it amounts to. The next picture here is my pole that I was building for the martins is finished, and I've got all the new gourds hanging on it, and I'm keeping them down low right at the moment because the concrete there is still setting up, and I don't want to put them up high and let the wind, pull the pole back and forth. So that's the name of that tune. I don't have a lot today to cover, so get your questions ready, and be sure whenever you do type your questions that you put 3 question marks in front, or 2 or 3 question marks in front of your question, because it just helps me find it better. I want to do the CD giveaway, as I mentioned last week. I think I've decided how I'm going to do the CD giveaway for my Patreon viewers, and we'll do that next week. Next week, I will announce the winners of the Patreon viewers, or my Patreon supporters, that are going to win the Boers CD. The Boers have no connection with me, by the way. This is just a group of folks that have a bluegrass band. It's a very good CD. And so I have 6 of them here I'm going to give out to my Patreon supporters. And I've decided how I'm going to do that, and I'll just tell you how I'm going to do that. And that is, I'm just going to use a random number generator. I don't know how many Patreon supporters I have at the moment, to be honest with you. I think around 100, maybe a little more than that. I'm not sure. Anyway, whatever the number is, if I have 103, well, then I'm going to say pick a number between 100 and 103, and then I'll count down and find that person, and there you go. And same way with this. This is just a mother of pearl abalone shell rose that my brother gave me, and I'm going to do the same thing with one of my Patreon viewers for that as well. The other 6 Boer CDs that I'm going to give away on the channel, I haven't decided how I'm going to do that yet. You guys didn't give me no ideas on how you guys want me to give them away. So anyway, I thought maybe trying to do some sort of a quiz or something, but I don't know. Got to come up with something. I haven't come up with anything for the regular giveaway yet. I'm looking here at my list so I don't forget too many things this time. I forget, even with a list, I forget stuff. I forgot all kinds of stuff last week again. I got another viewer gift, and it's a type of sandpaper. This came from Lloyd DeSalt, and Lloyd, I'm not sure where he's from. I probably got it here. He's from Maine. Wow, Berwick, Maine. My goodness. I bet you got a little bit more than a dusting of snow up there. we just have a dusting this morning. But anyway, it's a type of 3M sandpaper. He's got the 220 grit here, and it comes on a roll. It says it lasts 15 times longer. It's not, there's no sticky to the back, but it's kind of a rubberized feel a little bit, kind of a plasticky, rubbery type feel that you can maybe grip fairly well. I thought, what the heck, let's just do a quick live test with this. I have no idea. As you can see, I have not used it at all. This is the piece he sent me, and it's completely fresh. So this would be my test. I'm just going to cut a little piece off of here, and I'll just cut a typical size piece that I might use, like that. And we'll take the world's finest mandolin ever built by a human here and do a little bit of sanding. I had to recarve a lot of this on the back because the edges were a little too thick up here for my binding. So anyway, I had to sand and scrape. And by the way, I'm going to talk about the scraper improvement that I came up with to even scrape this stuff much better. But I'm just going to try sanding this a little bit right here, try to get it in camera. And my purpose of doing this is to see if this sandpaper loads up and to see if it's cutting anything. Well, my first impression is that it's working okay, but it doesn't seem to be cutting all that well. In other words, it doesn't seem like it's doing much removal. To be perfectly honest, I'm just being honest. I mean, it's moving something, but it's not doing a whole lot. But it does not seem to be loading up either. That's the good news. Let me try up here in this detail area and just using my finger. Really hard on the hands, I can tell you that. Well, the good news is it doesn't seem to be loading up, which most sandpapers do. I mean, they just load up really fast. So that part is good. And it's cutting. I can definitely see it's cutting. I'll have to do a little bit more in-depth analysis on it. Right now, I'd say it's pretty good stuff. Right now. So thank you, Lloyd. I appreciate you sending it to me. I like the grip on it. You can hold it really well. I like the flexibility of it. I think it will be great to put like on these little pads that I use. And I just pulling one out here. This is not one that I necessarily use, but anyway, I can put it on these pads like so and rub, and I think that's going to be really good because it's really flexible. So I think right now I'd say it's a winner all the way around. Thank you, Lloyd. I sure do appreciate it. I never had seen that type before. Well, you know what? Might as well just go ahead and talk about the scraper thing right now. This is going to probably be a little bit of a letdown to some of you. It's just this, but there's an improvement to it. It's just an X-Acto knife with one of these curved blades. And, I always retouch them up. Well, I shouldn't say always. I mean, if they're fresh out of the package, they're pretty good as they are as a scraper. But if I use them very much, then I'll sharpen them, on my whetstone, just traditional sharpening, and get them really sharp again. And what I did different this time was I took my little burnishing tool and I burnished the edge around, and I just burnished it and burnished it and burnished it, and so that just slightly curled the edge. Now this is pretty hard steel, so it doesn't burnish real well, But it did curl it just enough to make a real difference when I'm using it as a scraper. It really removed the wood much better, and it made it much smoother. It really is a really good detail scraper. You should try it. If you don't have a burnishing tool, and you might think, well, why do I need anything special? Well, you know, you need something pretty hard that doesn't scratch itself. Like this is a very hardened piece of steel. A valve stem out of a car or out of a lawnmower, something like that, a valve stem, those are hardened steel and they're round and they would make a good burnishing tool. But it needs to be something pretty hard and very smooth that you can bend that edge over where it doesn't distort the edge, it just curls it a little bit. But really, it made a big difference on this. I had, this whole area here was all, you know, jacked up because I had to recarve it all, the whole area. And, you know, I was just having trouble getting it smooth again. And when I did that, it changed everything. It really did. It really worked well. So there's your scraping tip. Incidentally, I'm kind of stalled on that because of all these other things that are coming in the shop. There's so many things coming. I've got 2 more folks coming yet today. As a matter of fact, they're supposed to be here at 9 o'clock, so they might be here before the end of our shop talk. I've got another, well, I have a classical guitar, which I do not work on classical guitars. I just want you to understand, except that he has a real good friend card. You know, he's one of my real good friends, and he wants me to put a new saddle in his classical guitar. And so I said, yes, bring it on out. I'll put a new saddle in there for you. But I don't work on classical guitars, just so you understand. And some of you are probably wondering, well, why? You know, classical guitars are a different animal. They really are. They're not in my bailiwick. Especially on things like neck resets, things like that. And the fact that they use those plastic strings, it's really difficult to understand the dynamics going on there with the action and all that, and I'm no expert at that, so I prefer to stay away from it. Anyway, I'm still going to make him a saddle, so when he gets here, we'll do that. Mountain View, we're going to be down in Mountain View, Arkansas, June 9th through 12th. Come down and join us if you can. I've already heard from several folks that said they're going to be down there. Be sure to, you know, when we get closer to it, maybe a week out or so, maybe email me and I'll text you my number where you can get a hold of me when we're down there. My brother Scott spent a full week here in the shop building that left-handed acoustic dreadnought guitar, and he came back last weekend and finished it up in terms of the bridge and, you know, the fretboard and things like that. He got it all ready to go. He's putting the finish on it as we speak. Hopefully one of these days we'll get some videos out about that. I don't know anything more than that right at the moment. I'm hoping we'll get something that you can see down the road. Let's see. The acoustic bass, I think I've covered everything. The acoustic bass sitting right here that you already saw yesterday. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and people, you know, lots of people pointed out the obvious. Why didn't you just take out that big panel? Well, right at the moment, that big panel's what's holding this together. No, really, I didn't need better access. I got plenty of access to the broken area. Yeah, it probably would have been a little bit closer, but honestly, the angle of it's not better, though. When I go through here, then I'm going right straight down that brace, and then now my clamp is wanting to tip off like this, where if I go this way, my clamp kind of sits on it, you know, and it's a little easier to clamp from this side. I've got plenty of access, so I didn't really need to take this off. Yeah, boy, it's a mess. It really is a mess. And I've studied that inside and studied that inside, and I am sure that it was glued to that bridge plate at one time. Positive, absolutely 100% sure. And the reason I know that is because the front of it is still glued to the bridge plate. It's just like that. It's like the front of it here. If this is the front of the brace, it's still glued to the bridge plate, and the rest of it's like this. See, and I'm trying to push it up, and then there's a little bit of a cutout to go around the bridge plate right here on the brace, if that makes sense. I hope it makes sense, because this is the bridge plate. So there's a little bit of a cutout in the brace, and so behind that cutout, I got the brace back up to the top of the guitar, but still between that area and the front of the brace, it's not touching. And it used to. You can pretty much tell it used to. There just had to be a ton of stress there, and when it popped, it just said, "Nope, I ain't going back." That's the only thing I can come up with, because I'm sure it used to be there. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. But I will not be able to work on this today because of that guitar coming in and another mandolin coming in, and I don't know, there's something else too. And yeah, it's just not easy being me. That's all I can tell you. A couple of videos ago, I mentioned this as a viewer gift. Now, don't misunderstand anything I'm about to say. This is a great knife. I'm glad my viewer sent it to me. It's wonderful. Seems like it's got really good steel in it. It seems to hold an edge really well. It's got Smith & Wesson's name on it. I'm fairly sure it was made in China. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I'm guessing. It doesn't really say where it's made that I can see. I really don't know about that part. But anyway, I'm assuming that. But what's up with the dang serrations they put in these blades these days? All these dang yuppie kids got to have serrations in their knife blades. Now, that's exactly where you want to carve with your knife blade. If you know anything about using a knife instead of looking at one, you don't want serrations right where you're cutting. I mean, that's exactly where you do your cutting. I don't want serrations there. I want something that's going to cut, and smooth. And so, literally, and I'm not making this up, 12 minutes before we went live, I took those serrations out of this knife. And 4 minutes before we went live, I was finished sharpening it. And it shaves hair like nobody's business. I mean, it is sharp. So that's how fast you can sharpen a knife. And those are the old traditional ways of sharpening a knife with just a simple Arkansas whetstone. All this stuff you see on YouTube now about it takes, 3 hours to sharpen this knife and get it perfect. Baloney. If you're spending more than 5 minutes sharpening your knife, you are wasting your time. Anyway, I really do like this knife. It's very nice. Except that it is a little bit bigger and bulkier than the one that Eddie gave me, which I keep in my pocket. Eddie's is much smaller. I do like it because of the size better. But as you already knew, the steel on this one wasn't that good. And it's still not that great because I used the wrong kind of steel when I made the new blade. It's better than it was, but still not that great. Doesn't seem to be as good as the edge on this blade. So this edge so far seems like a really good blade. So there you go. For what it's worth, me and knives, we've had a long cutting relationship. Okay, I think I'm done rambling. Let's see if we have questions. I saw a whole bunch of them scrolling up the screen as I was talking there. And man, wow, there's a bunch of them here this morning. You guys I must have made you mad. Buck Rogers. Really? Buck Rogers? I read that book when I was just a little kid. Or actually, it was read to me, I would think. I used to have that book, too. I don't know what I did with it. It was just one of those thin golden reader type books. It wasn't the big novel type book. Buck Rogers, Jerry, wouldn't it be better to just remake the sides on that base, less time as well, and maybe small insert for the top? Well, Buck, I don't know. First of all, we'd never find wood that matches that. This is some sort of a. Someone told me on an email, and this ear and out that one, some type of walnut. I don't know if they said Brazilian walnut or it was some other country walnut, and I don't know which one it was. But anyway, it's a type of wood that I really haven't seen before. So, if I patch something in there, it'd be kind of like, plywood patch. It just wouldn't look that good. So I'm going to try to rebuild it with what we have, with the pieces. And would it be faster? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. I don't think speed's going to be the issue. I think getting it back together where it's solid and doesn't rattle is going to be the biggest issue. But yeah, Buck, I mean, there's a million ways you could do it, and your way is no worse or no better than my way. It's just that I don't have any wood that would match that, so I can't really just tear it all out and try to patch it back in. It just wouldn't look very good at all. And it may not look very good this way either, so, that may just be a non-issue. Chip Wood, I know that name. How are you doing, Chip? Still wondering when or where you got the Oscar behind you. Well, that was sent to me by a viewer also, and that was for the best in chocolate. It came to me with a little letter and everything. I don't know if the letter's still back there, but one of my viewers sent that to me after I repaired the violin chocolate, and they said, best in chocolate. I thought that was nice. So I proudly display my Oscar. I don't know too many luthiers that have won Oscars. Peter Lubach, are you going to make more videos on the fat base chocolate? I guess you're talking about this base. Well, yeah, there'll be plenty more videos on it, and I'm moving toward, I hesitate to say daily vlog, but I'm moving toward something toward that. So as I'm doing more vlog type videos, you'll see this from time to time. It's not going to be necessarily every day, but it'll pop in and out as I do something on it. There could be multiple subjects in my daily type vlogs. And again, I hate to use the word daily because it probably won't be every day, but I'll try to get out as many in a week as I can. The problem with that is just the editing. It takes forever to edit these things. And you think, well, just put it out like it is. You can't do that. I mean, like, this turned out to be, 19 minutes? Had I put it out in its raw form, it would have been 30 minutes or longer. 35 minutes, something like that. And it was mostly just stuff you wouldn't want to watch anyway. It's just, just dead space or me walking around the shop picking up something. That kind of stuff. You just got to cut that stuff out. And I try to turn the camera off a lot so I don't have to cut a lot of that out. But you know how that is. Anyway, it just kind of is what it is. So anyway, moving on. Ron Melberg says, if a lefty wanted to purchase your training DVD, could he not just watch the video in a mirror? Yeah, Ron, I think, are you the one that sent me that email today? I did see an email this morning before, the shop talk that said something about you had reversed the training by looking in a mirror or something like that. I guess you could, obviously. So a lefty could do it that way. I don't know if it's somehow possible to reverse it like on a smartphone. I know, we did some smartphone live music at that restaurant we used to play at. And when you do that with your smartphone and you turn it where you can see the video, it puts everything in reverse. And like all the wording is backwards, everything. So smartphones have that capability. I just don't know if they have the capability to do it on the fly with one of my training videos. Might be something to look into. I haven't had a chance to check that out. Michael 2X, I was wondering if you could use wood carving gouges to carve the curly maple on the, to make it a little easier. No, honestly, it does more tear out than it does gouging. I did use one, up around the curl and stuff. I don't know if you saw that in the video or not, or maybe that part of the video hasn't come out yet. I don't remember now, but yeah, I did use a wood chisel type gouge up in that detailed scroll area, but that kind of wood just doesn't take kindly to being cut. I mean, you can believe what you want, but when you put this in your hand, you start trying to cut it, you'll go, oh, now I see what you're talking about. It's not a carve friendly type wood. Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't. If I were you, knowing what you know from me, I don't just say these things just to make something dramatic. I would not use that as your first choice for building an instrument. This is my second one I've built out of it, so I guess I'm just an idiot or a glutton for punishment. But I just wanted one for myself because I just think it's beautiful wood. And it really goes back to the 1970s. My Aunt Betty bought a quilted maple mandolin for my uncle Don Brown, and he's the one that had the Lloyd Loar, by the way. At that time, he didn't own the Lloyd Loar. It was in the very early 70s, I think it was, or it might have been late 60s. Anyway, it was at the time when Gibson's quality had really gone in the toilet, and the mandolin that he got really wasn't much. It didn't sound good. It was beautiful looking. It really was beautiful. And that's where that look thing goes back to me as a child. I remember that mandolin, and it was so cool looking. That's why I wanted to build myself a quilted mandolin, quilted maple mandolin. Will I sell it? Don't plan to, but if somebody makes me a ridiculous offer, I might. It'd have to be pretty ridiculous. Let's see. Gary Boer said, where did you get the little sanding pad you just showed? Did my viewers send me those or did I buy those? Kind of think maybe my viewers sent those to me. I don't know where I got them, I'll be honest. I think it was from viewers. I've had them for quite a while. I was going to show you a couple of mods. Now that you're bringing it up, I'm going to show you a couple of modifications I made. And these are, I think, really good modifications, at least for me because of the way I do this detail work. Here's kind of what they look like. Now, they come in different sizes. This is one of the larger ones. And so you've got this concave side here, and you've got your convex round side there. And you can wrap your sandpaper around this, and you can, put your sandpaper on this and then sand like a rail or maybe a dowel or something like that. What I do is, I literally cut them in half. They're just too big. I don't need them this big for working on instruments, so I literally sawed them in half. And then I also flattened off a spot. Because a lot of times I'm mostly doing flat stuff, and I can save the round one for the round, and now I've got the flat one for the flat, and I like the small size like this. Generally when I'm sanding, I'm doing detail sanding for the most part. And so I did that, with a number of these, and then on this little one, I even went further and I sawed it at an angle like that because I can get into very tight spots now. I can get right up to the fretboard, or maybe, around that scroll, I can get up into that detail. So these are just rubber, by the way, in case you can't tell what they are. They're very flexible. It's a hard rubber. And so anyway, I made a bunch of different sizes ones and shape ones, and out of what he sent me. I don't see the rest of them here, but I know I have a bunch of them. Anyway, I probably have that out using it here, laying in my mess on my desk here somewhere. But those are really good. Those are the best sanding pads I've ever had. I really, I'm not big on sanding pads to begin with, but those are pretty good. I really like those. I do use sanding blocks from time to time. I typically just use a small hardwood sanding block and wrap my sandpaper around it and hold on to it that way. As a matter of fact, this is pretty much what I use most of the time. It's just a piece of hard maple. It's got the edges rounded off a little bit, and I just take a small piece of sandpaper and hold it like that and sand with it. That's what I typically use as a sanding block. Again, because I'm doing smaller stuff. I mean, even the whole back of a guitar is still small, and that's plenty big for the whole back of a guitar. And you have to understand, too, it's the physics of it. The smaller it is, the more pressure your sandpaper puts in that spot. If you widen it out, that's why, like, if you've ever noticed on big earth-moving equipment, they always put big, wide, heavy tracks on them. It's because it puts less ground pressure on the ground. You may not understand that, but that's the dynamics of it. That's what that's for. The same way with these sanding pads. The smaller they are, the more pressure they put in that spot, and you sand much faster. So I like them small. I don't like them large. Okay. So Gary, that hopefully answered your question, although unfortunately I don't know where they came from. So I just know I got them from a viewer. If the viewer's watching that sent those to me, please identify and tell us where you got them. Clyde Lewis, what's the main size or sizes of finger plane that you use? Well, I have covered this a few times, Clyde. All of these years, I've had a 10 millimeter, and a 12 millimeter, and I don't remember what the bigger one is. It's like 25 or 30, something like that. So all these years, I've had these three, basically. So that's the big one. And if I had a millimeter ruler handy, I'd tell you. It's it's 18 millimeter. I remember that now. So this one, the big one is 18 millimeter. The middle size one, I believe, is 12. And my small one, it was 10. For all these years. One of my wonderful viewers sent me this little 8 millimeter gem. Oh my gosh. I wish I would have had this all these years. I really like the little 8 millimeter one. Again, it's the pressure thing. The smaller it is, the more you can do with it. You'd be surprised. You'd think that bigger would be better. It's not. You can't hardly push this sucker. I mean, it's great for if you're hogging out real softwood and you're doing big areas. This thing's great. I hardly ever use this. You can see by the shine on the bottom there, it's not been used very much. Where like the shine on this, probably you can maybe tell it's been used quite a bit more. And this is just the 8 millimeter that I just got. But anyway, and then one of my viewers sent me this one as well. This one's more like a little palm type finger plane because you can rest it in your palm here and get more pressure on it. This is really good, but it was an awkward size for me. It was longer, and it had a really, really curved bottom. I want a curved bottom, don't get me wrong, but I don't want it crazy curved. I just want a little bit of a curve, you know. These are all what you call round bottom planes, but they're very minimal round bottom. And that's what so I basically reshaped this one to be more like those, and I can do a lot more with this now. I really like it a lot better in this shape than the shape it came in. But the fact that it has this adjustable length handle here is really nice. I do really like this too. So anyway, there you go. 8, 10, 18, and I think this is a 10 also. Pretty sure it's a 10. Try to compare it here. Yeah, it looks like a 10. Okay, so there you go. put them back away here so I can find them when I need them again. I actually have 3 10-millimeter planes like this now. I bought one for Caleb, and I guess he left it here when he left. I had another one for myself. It's nice to have 2 of them. Of any particular one you like, it's nice to have 2 of them, and the reason is because you can leave a tooth blade in one and a smooth blade in the other. And the tooth blade you can cut in so many different directions, and you can use it for leveling the overall project. Like if you're carving a top of a mandolin and you're using your main blade, and then now you've kind of got it about where you want it, well then you take your tooth blade and you can kind of go in almost any direction and knock the humps off and level out the whole thing and make it much smoother. Then you take your scraper and smooth it down even more. Okay, hope that makes sense. Bill Allen, what is the minimum set of tools you'd recommend to set up acoustic guitars as a side business? Are nut files essential? Well, I used to never use the nut files. I think as my arthritis has hit more and as I've getting older, I think the nut files are nice. I do think they're probably the better way to go than just using the saw. I pretty dang good using just the saw though. I can pretty much set up any instrument with just a fret saw. And do it really well because I use it like a file. I don't use it as a saw. I'm not sawing. I'm using it kind of like this as a file, and it works great. The reason it works better than a file, and it still works better than these fret files, I'll just tell you that right now, for this one reason, and that is it doesn't load up. Doesn't load up at all. All of these fret files, especially depending on what you're filing, like bone likes to stick and cling to the file, antler does too, and certain plastics do too, where they don't stick to the saw. That's the cool advantage of the saw. And I still, to this day, will use the saw first, just a regular fret saw. I just use that first to get my notches started a lot of times. And then that way I think I can do that more accurately and place them more accurately with the saw than I can with the file. Sometimes the file will want to slide off to one side or the other, where the saw you can kind of pretty much get right exactly where you want it to be. So I still use the saw to some degree, but I do think fret files are important now, and more important than I used to think they are. So I do use them now. Minimum set of tools. Boy, for setting them up, of course you're going to need the fret files. You're going to need a fret leveling tool, which I use this. Again, this is just a 6-inch mill bastard file that I glued to a block of wood. You first of all want to make sure your block of wood's good and straight, and that you carve it to fit your ergonomics, if you will. And this fits me really well. And this is hard for some people to believe, but it's true. Every single file, mill bastard file, is going to have a very, very, very slight, and I mean it's so slight that most people just look down and probably won't be able to see it, but they all have a very slight curve to them. You want to turn the convex side, the round side, the curved round side, you want that out. You want that down touching your frets. You want the underbow up. So that that it's stuck to this. And the reason is that when you're sliding here, otherwise it's going to be bumping your frets, and you're not going to be real happy. It's not going to work real well. You also want to round off the front of this and round off the back of this, so that when you're sliding it across there, it won't be bumping your frets. And but as long as you put it on your block of wood the way I'm telling you, which is kind of like that. In other words, I'm exaggerating the curl because it has one. I just flat haven't seen a file that doesn't have one. Some of them have such a minor amount that you can even barely tell it. but it's there. So pay attention to that when you glue it to the block. So that's probably the most important tool, probably. You know, this tool here, which I've shown 19 million times on my channel, and I get more questions about this than anything. This is that taper gauge. This one is in size. The camera's not going to focus on that. In size number 4630-1E. You all should be able to repeat that with me now. 4630-1E. You can get these off of eBay. Me personally, I think this is essential. I really do. I never had one of these until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And once I got one of these, it's like, oh my gosh, this changes everything. It's so much easier to check your height, your string height. And, you know, you can do it with feeler gauges, but it's trial and error, and you're going in and out 15 times trying to get it exact. You just stick this in there and you know exactly what it is. It's just that simple. The trick, of course, is that it rocks on the fret as you're sliding it in over the fret, like you're sliding it down the fret like this, under the string. The string's going this way. And of course, it can rock on that fret. You just have to get used to that. Your feeler gauge can rock on the fret too, and it will rock on the fret. So you have to be very careful. But anyway, that would be my next very important tool for setup. So these two and your set of fret files, and you can, these are StewMac fret files. These are good fret files. I'm happy with them. They seem to work pretty well. In fact, I have 2 or 3 sets of them. I think I've got at least 2 sets of them. Anyway, so those are probably the main things. Let me think about it a little bit more. What else would you really need for setup? I mean, if you're just talking setup by itself, that's mostly it. You're going to need some way to recrown the frets. And there's a lot of recrowning type files out there. The one I use is the StewMac version again, and this one has a lot of interchangeable blades that you can, I don't know, is that a blade? I don't know, call it whatever. I can't think of the words, but it has interchangeable files that you can put in there, and so that's the one I use. You can get lots of other kinds and styles of those fret recrowning tools. I also use, like 600 wet or dry sandpaper to repolish the frets after I'm done. That's pretty much all you need for setup, I think. Now, if you get into actually fret replacement, which is a different animal, then, there's more stuff you need. You're going to need a fret puller to pull the frets out. You're going to need a nipper to nip the ends of the frets off, the tang underneath there, so that when the fret comes out over the top of the binding, the tang is on the inside of the binding. So there's a lot more tools you could, expand to, but for just setups, what I told you there, I think is pretty much all you have to have. Dennis Cleveland, when I learned to make a scraper with a burnishing tool, the burnishing tool was only used to roll over both the corners at 90-degree angle. Perhaps the way you are making the scraper cuts too much. Well, Dennis, yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. A cabinet scraper is, like you talking about. That's the way people do cabinet scrapers. They just make a 90-degree edge, and then they just burnish the corner. And that works great for cabinets and things. The kind of scraper I use and the way I do it is like the old school violin maker scraper way. At least the violin maker I went to learn from at the very beginning. And when I say learn from, I only spent like one day in his shop just getting ideas and understandings, and that's how he showed me how he makes his scrapers, and I've been doing it that way ever since, and it works great for me. Yeah, they do cut. They're very aggressive, and that, you might say, well, that's why it's causing that. No, that's not why that's having a problem. Trust me, I've scraped more wood than you could put in a semi truck. Probably a fleet of semi trucks. I've scraped that much wood in my life, and I know how to scrape wood. That wood's different wood. Trust me. You just have to take my word for it, or try it. Just try it and show me how to do it. That's all I can say. So it's got nothing to do with the way you sharpen it or anything. That wood just doesn't like to be scraped. Period. Zero. End of answer. It doesn't like to be cut either. It doesn't like to be filed. It doesn't like to be sanded. It doesn't like nothing. Just leave it alone. That's what it wants. Okay. Let's move on down. Buck Rogers looks like another question. I was scraping this week and thought of you because I have holder for my scrapers. Have you ever tried them? Easier on the arthritis. Well, no, Buck, I haven't, I don't think. I'd be curious to see what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm always open to ideas. Wow, it looks like we got a bunch of super chats here. Super chats meaning folks have made a donation. Although I'm beginning to wonder if there's not a mistake here or something, because a couple of them are mentioned twice. So it looks like Clyde Lewis and Francis McInnes have both done a super chat, and Francis, it looks like he did two. I hope that's not a mistake. Anyway, thank you very, very, very much. I appreciate it. Now, this all scrolled up my screen, and I'm going to have to move back up here and see if I can figure out where I was. Looks like there's a bunch of questions. Wow. I really am lost here. I'm trying to find it because, man, it must have scrolled a long way. Wow, it did. It really scrolled. There is a lot of questions. We're not going to get to all these today. I'm sorry. Last week I was looking for questions. This week we got them coming out the woodwork. Gee whiz. Okay, I'm trying to find where it went. Stopped at. Okay, I'm back. I found it here. All right, Dennis Cleveland was the last one I did, so let me scroll down to the next one. Looks like Tracy Ennis. Is black walnut back and sides with cedar face a good combo for sound of a guitar? Well, the black walnut back and sides would probably be okay. And when you say cedar, if you're talking western cedar, I'd say yes. That would be a fine combo. It would probably be a fairly deep, bassy sounding instrument, probably. It's just my best guess because black walnut is a little more that direction, and so is the cedar. So anyway, they both have that tendency. So I would say you'd probably have a deep sounding guitar if you did that, if that's what you're looking for. Diorman Roby just says the words greenwood ? And I guess maybe you're talking about how hard that wood is to carve or something. No, it's got nothing to do with that. It's not green. If that's your question. John C. says, I read that relief or underbow on a guitar gives the string room to vibrate in contrast to straight. Well, John, there's something to be said for that. I don't totally disagree with that. And relief is very minimal. You have to understand 10 thousandths is the thickness of 2 sheets of notebook paper tightly pressed together. So it's not much. And over the length of a fingerboard, that's not very much. Does that give it a lot of room to vibrate? Not that much. And what the problem with, when I call it underbow, I'm talking about it's more than relief. The problem with underbow is, I wish I could draw this better. I'm going to try to do it like this, and it's not going to really be a very good representation, but my hand here is the guitar body. This hand here is the guitar body. This is the neck over here. And I'm exaggerating it for the illustration. If this area right here is your relief, okay, and then you come back up to your guitar body, because keep in mind, you've got this at an angle also. Now you got relief, and now you got your guitar body bent kind of, kind of like that. So your guitar body is like this, your neck angle's like this, and again, I'm exaggerating. But when you do that, you create a ski ramp right here, or a high spot right here. See, your bridge is back here. Now you've got to clear this high spot because you got too much relief. So what you've created is a buzz point, and it's real common for instruments to buzz right around the 12th, well, not the 12th fret so much, but the body line fret, 12th or 15th or whatever your body line is connected at. So right there, there's a high spot. They like to buzz there a lot. So the more relief you have, the more that's emphasized. So that's why I'm not big on relief. A little bit of relief is fine, but you're talking minute amounts. And by the way, when you press that fret down, no matter where you press it down, that next fret, I don't care if you got relief or not, that next fret is dang near touching the string. Period. You can say what you want, but that's the black and white fact. They're almost touching the next fret whenever you press a fret. Take a look at it. Get down with a microscope and look at it and see how much clearance you got on your next fret. It ain't much. Unless the only way it would be much is if your saddle's crazy high. Then you would have more. But if your instrument's set up low to play low, then you don't have much clearance at the next fret. I don't care how you relief it. There you go. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. So I'm not really arguing with you, John, about what you're saying. It's sort of true, but it's sort of not true, too, also. So, I mean, there's positives and negatives to it either way you go. And people need to understand that. There's so many things thought of in instruments and stuff that I just think have just been perpetuated. They're like myths and truths that somebody said is a truth, and it's just carried on forever. It's not necessarily 100% true, some of these things. And this is one of them, in my opinion. It's not 100% true. There's truth to it, not 100% true. Are you going to meet Sue sometime? Okay. I'm going to pass on that one. Let's see. Glenn Snyder, suggestion for CD giveaway. Viewers that give you a thumbs up regularly be the ones picked for a chance to win. Well, if I knew how to tell who they were, I'd sure do that because I can't, that's the thing I can't tell from my end. I'd do it that way for sure, Glenn. Yeah, if I knew, and if somebody can tell me how to know that, then I'll do it that way. BRI Wood. What is the smallest size of guitar still good for strumming? Is a parlor too small for strumming? Well, BRI Wood, I think if you ask 1,000 people, you'd probably get 999 different answers. Yeah, I don't know on that one. Yeah, I think that's more of an opinion than it is anything else. Parlor